Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Figueroa.
And my name is Pellón.
Today, we are going to present our analysis of a Formula One new report that covers the Friday practice session at the Canadian Grand Prix. Let's begin with the genre and function. The genre of the text is descriptive because it mainly describes events that happen during the practice session. The function is experiential. It aims to inform the audience about what happened on track, what drivers said, what technical strategies were used, and how each team performed. The coherence begins with McLaren's situation, then transition into driver quotes, moves into technical aspect, and ends with incidents and crashes. Then the cohesion in the text is achieved through pronouns that refer back to drivers and teams, connectors that signal relationships between ideas, repeated or related terms that maintain the topic focus.
Then we have the structure of the text, which follows a descriptive scaffolding pattern. First, there's a general opening statement. Norris said McLaren had the worst Friday. Then the development continues with direct quotes from Norris, a description of his new front suspension, and performance comparisons with Russell and other drivers. It ends with some incidents like Leclerc's crash, which gives a soft conclusion. And in this type of text, the conclusion is optional.
Okay, moving on to grammatical feature, the most common sense use is the past simple, as we can see here in Russell was, because the article is reporting events that already happened. There's also a frequent use of reported speech, as we can see here, Norris said. This helps to include the driver's opinion and evaluations while keeping the text informative and clear. And of course, technical vocabulary is essential in this genre. Words like C6 compound, race simulation runs, and front suspension show the text is aimed at an audience familiar with Formula One.
Now let's talk about recurrence rules. The example Norris said and he had is an anaphoric procedure. The pronoun he refers back to Norris. This avoids repeating his name and helps maintain cohesion. It also shows that the same speaker continues, making the text flow naturally and clearly. Then we have an example of reception. The idea of a worst Friday is introduced early and then restated in a different way. By repeating and rephrasing this point, the text ensures the reader receives the intended emphasis. Then we have an example of co-reference. The words upgrade and it refers to the same object, the new suspension that is mentioned before. And as I said before, this is co-reference. Two different expressions refer to the same thing, helping the reader follow the topic clearly without confusion. Then we have an example of elision. And it's hard to say from one track. The full meaning is it's hard to say how effective the specification or the upgrade is from one track. The words how effective the specification is are understood from context and therefore left out. These omissions make the speech more natural and fluent. And finally, the words medium tire, the soft, and medium compound are an example of lexical substitutions. These expressions refer to the same object but use different words. These substitutions avoid repeating the word tire and helps maintain cohesion by introducing related technical terms.
The most common progression pattern is a continuous theme. This means that the same topic, for example, tire choice, as we can see here in yellow, is maintained across several sentences, each one adding a new technical or strategic detail. This makes the explanation deeper and more coherent, especially when talking about the strategy like using medium tires over soft ones.
Finally, the most frequent connectivity rule is contrastive connectors to show comparisons, like but, than, and although. This helps emphasize differences between expectations and results, or between strategies and outcomes. An example is not in terms of space, but in terms of putting it together. This contrast hill highlights Norris' main concerns.
So in conclusion, the text is not just a race summary, it's a structured, cohesive, and technically rich report that combines factual information with drivers' opinions. And through grammar, discourse rules, and progression patterns, it managed to keep the reader engaged while communicating complex information clearly. That's all. Thank you for listening.